Did you like it? So it's been 11 nights playing.
Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
So if you have no idea what's going on, don't worry, that's par for the course, and most of the time neither do we, although I have a bit better of an idea of what's going on than I did last week, Kay.
Oh, do tell.
You'll notice that I'm no longer cornered into a tiny little octagon
I noticed.
by the bully bookshelves. Well, I
noticed there was also some damage to the book return carts, but...
I apologize for that, but you know how when you're being chased by bullies, eventually you have to turn around and just stand your ground and boot them on the nose? And I do appreciate that you encouraged me to stand up for myself last time. It doesn't really work when the bullies that you're being chased with are like 8 gigantic bookshelves.
No, I can see that would be a problem. I guess you have to threaten them.
So I reached for whatever I had on hand.
The book return trolley.
I mean, it started out with a stapler.
Oh, yeah.
Impressed by that?
No, I can't see it. I mean, stapling books together, it doesn't really work. You have to, hit it really hard, and it doesn't really, it probably only makes them a little bit more angry than, actually drive them away.
So I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
When I was being chased by the bully bookshelves, was I chased by the shelves or by the books on them? Were the books animating the shelves as they were coming toward me?
I would think that, yes. That's probably most likely.
Okay.
I mean, bookshelves by themselves, empty bookshelves never do that kind of thing. So
never?
Not that I've ever seen.
You know that's going in the wiki now that you've said it.
Yes.
That's definite lore that we're always going to have to remember. We have inanimate bookshelves and animate books.
Well, I mean, I've never seen an ambulatory bookshelf with no books on it. It's kind of like an airplane.
Yeah,
an airplane. It can fly, but you've never seen it fly without a pilot. Well, unless it's radio-controlled aircraft.
Weather balloons?
Then again, not aircraft. Yes, but they've been released and they're just drifting on the wind. During pollination season, we get that here in the library, but...
Okay, so what you're saying is I should put tracking rings on the empty bookshelves and just see where they...
You could.
I
don't think so.
The scientific process.
Yeah.
Okay, now we'll
maybe
we'll
so
do
you
that.
can mark them individually. They already have their bookmarking.
Yeah, the index runes.
A through Z, yes.
It's Thorn and Futhark, and because we're in the elder Dewey Imperial system now.
Right. Well, probably it's the Eldritch Dewey Imperial system.
So after I briefly distracted them with my ineffectual staples, I hid behind one of the information desks for a while, thinking that they wouldn't be able to see me through the various index cards, but they managed to flush me out eventually.
I guess they could smell fear.
And I did one of those power slide maneuvers over to the book trolley, which I then sort of used as my escape vehicle.
Crouching behind it and running while you're deflecting the Post-it notes.
Yes.
The Death Star Post-it notes.
The Death Stars. Yes, you were excellently referencing one of my favorite announcements that I ever heard in an airport. This was in Edinburgh Airport, where they're talking about, and please be aware that knives of any kind are not allowed, and talked about this whole list: no swords, no belt knives, no pocket knives, no Death Stars.
I don't know who came up with calling shuriken Death Stars, but especially with the beautiful Scottish accent.
I made a decent escape, but it took a couple of dings, that trolley.
It's all right. They get banged around a little bit in the elevators and stuff like that. It's not a big deal.
So my plan to make this floor my dominion as a librarian is not quite coming together yet. Do you have any other advice how to deal with these unruly books?
Well, I would say no racetrack for the book trolleys, but that's...
Oh, okay. I'll just erase all these chalk markings that I made on the floor then.
I was wondering about those. That they look like outlines for bodies or bookshelves, so I was wondering
that's a weird-ass body. That's
what I'm saying, bookshelves, but okay. It might work, actually. They might be entertained, and they might like to post themselves around the track and then either provide spectators or obstacles, depending on what their mood is like.
Whoa.
It's going to be like an audience participation race.
Yeah, and if that works, I want these shelves organized in a certain fashion, right? So if I can get them interested in Formula K. No, that's confusing because your name is K.
Formula Kaki.
Kaki, there's the one. There's probably going to be a gag in there somewhere where
Who you're going to race, though?
The Jeu Monégasque. Is anyone going to get that?
Sounds like maybe.
No, the Grand Prix of Monaco is things from Monaco are Monégasque. Yeah. So it's the jeu game Monégasque.
Ah, right.
And I thought, that's probably not. We'll figure something out. But if I can get them super interested on that, then as I alter the floor plan, I can eventually create a racetrack on the floor that they will then...
Yes, first you get them playing along, and then you slightly start modifying the track until you have them where you want them.
Now, you do bring up an interesting point that I am going to have a race with something. And since after we finish this recording, you and the podcasting equipment are going to ascend to the heavens once more, and I'll be alone here for the next week. So I'm going to have to figure out, maybe we're onto something. Maybe some kind of autonomous drone that I can chase, or, let's be fair, can chase me around the racetrack. That's probably
autonomous drone racing. All right. Yeah, well, let's see what you come up with. I mean, like motorized book return cards. That sounds like a very interesting concept.
There you go. See, I knew you'd be 100% on board and behind me. Thank you.
Right. You're welcome.
So, returning to books, a book return.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, what do we have in store for our readers this week?
This book is by Richard Wilson, and then the town took off.
Yes, and the book is called...
City, and then the town took off.
A complete novel.
A complete novel. It's actually half of a double novel, which we did in episode...
late 70s, was it? Early 80s? 83,
yes.
Stay Out of Space.
That's one, yes. So it's one of those books which has a reverse book on the other side. And
that's such a cool idea.
You can just flip them off. And flip them over. There will be flipping off later, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So there's a double H novel books. You get 2 for 35 cents. And
that's
when you're done reading it, you flip it over, and then you have another book to read on the other side. And we thought, let's do this one. Like we still have that one laying around, Stay Out of Space. And now this is actually more about going into space, this book.
Yes, because on the cover we do see a star field in the background, and we do see like a rocky heavenly body, just as we did with Stay Out of Space, but that's where the similarities end, because we have a pilot with goggles and a helmet.
Not just any pilot.
Yes, our beloved hero of many young adult books, Blake Whitecock,
who is in his spaceship flying from like Space Town to Space Town on the cover.
Square-jawed, behelmeted cockpit jockey Blake Whitecock.
Although I'm just realizing, it's like he's wearing flying goggles.
Yeah.
Why is he wearing those when he's in a cockpit?
Maybe they have some kind of HUD over them, a heads-up display. He's flying over a pastoral landscape, flying above the clouds, looking up at a huge sort of...
flying town, yes.
Yeah, with a hemisphere of Earth sticking
out of it. Which has been lifted out of the ground and is now flying off into space.
And for the readers at home, if you look down at your podcasting device, you should be seeing the cover of today's book. Otherwise, you can check the show notes for an image and a link, and you can check covermyasscast.com or at covermyasscast on Twitter and find episode 91, and then the town took off by Richard Wilson. Because what we see here is I thought it was such a cool concept that this book explored, where certain towns have elected to remove themselves from the rest of the world.
Rocket technology has come a long way, and at a certain point, a certain town decides, screw it all, we are going home. Or actually, we're not going home, we are taking home. And they are strap some booster rockets to the town and just blast it right out of the Earth into space and screw you all down there. We're leaving.
And it's motivated a lot by, let's call a spade, a bit of xenophobia. Out-of-towners, we don't want them coming in and spoiling our town. We want to preserve.
Local town, local people, that kind of stuff. Are you local? There's a lot of that going on.
It's something that started with the British town of Suffolk, which was the first one to strap rocket boosters underneath itself and dig a giant trench until eventually they could launch themselves into space, which is why this process of launching your town into space is known as suffocation.
Yeah. Yes.
Some people complain that small town life is just stifling and suffocating, but they haven't really encountered suffocation.
No, in the original with Suffolk, it did go wrong because they forgot to account for the lack of atmosphere outside.
Yes.
And so there's later enterprises took this into account, and I guess you can't see the dome which is supposed to be built over the town here in this.
God, everybody's so horny for domes in the eras these books were written.
Space domes were cool.
Do you remember we did a book where you had a space dome on the moon over a factory that had chimney and was
sticking out of the dome? Yeah, that was brilliant. Yes. That's an old one.
Deep Cut, that was City on the Moon by Murray Leinster.
Right, yes, that's one.
I noticed that some of them on City on the Moon have their chimneys sticking out, and some of them are still the chimneys under the dome.
Which is both equally stupid.
Both are incredibly stupid. But yeah, they appear to have invisible shields in the era to avoid suffocation.
Yeah, I guess that's what a church tower is good for. You can always mount the shield generator in the spire and protect your town like that.
There you go. See, this is part of a bit of a trend that this world finds itself in. Like, the current state of technology is, in this world, far more advanced than that of ours. But at the same time, the appearance of this world is retrograde. There's a back to the land movement.
Very pastoral.
Yeah. Their far more advanced technology is all disguised as they have tractors and they have cars, all of which have fusion engines and anti-grav plating, but it's all sort of presented as something old-fashioned. A style of technology known as chromesteading.
Yes.
Yeah, because you could...
All the cars have huge fins and taillights and all kind of stuff like that. And I think it's a very nice look. It's basically going back to that era that everybody always wants to go back to. It's the fictional past where everything was better and things were good.
Never existed.
No, it never.
But you can make it now with modern technology.
Yes, there we go. I guess Blake Whitecock is yearning for that.
And so we start off with our hero. The hero of many boys' adventures books, Blake Whitecock. Now, you've got me saying it now. It's Whitecock. We find him over the peak of his career, which is a bit of a shame because he worked for whatever the organization was called. I don't think we...
Wasp?
Yeah, no, Wasp was a thing that he flew.
It was also
the book didn't specify. I think it was rather poor, one of those poor sequels. But like the technology that he was flying for this secret organization was the insectology developed by their quartermaster Leslie. And yeah, like various sized insects, and like he had an ice ray, but all of that has been overtaken by the far more modern chrome-steading technology. Like, nobody's interested in
weird insect technology because they're kind of messy and smelly, and you have to like deal with that. And the Mr. Fusion. Oh no, wait, that's
no, but
the little fusion, portable fusion generators.
Senor Fusion.
Senor Fusion.
Yeah.
Well, basically cheaply made Chinese fusion generators which have been flooding the place, and everything's been retrofitted to handle them.
All of this secret technology they were working on for the Argentinian-Wales War, Cold War.
Like all Cold Wars, they come to an end eventually. They heat up or they completely disappear.
Well, in this case, they certainly heated up when the leaders of both sides, the Welsh Argentinian Special Forces, Louise, Helen, and Monique, whom we saw last in a previous adventure, like found some common ground. They put all the insectology on mothballs.
Didn't quite work out the way they thought it would. It turns out mothballing insect things is more like eliminating them rather than just like preserving them. Like when they put those airplanes in those airplane graveyards where they completely wrap them up and then they just put them out in the desert where it's dry and they're not going to get...
I didn't know they do that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I guess dry storage?
There's like whole swathes of a desert which with aircraft parked in them in the US.
Wow.
Where they just mothball them, really. But yeah, if you do that with an insect, and especially if you add the mothballs, not very good for the insect. So...
To the great disappointment of Quartermaster Leslie, who resigned in a huff during the formation of the Atlantic Alliance, which saw the flourishing of peace between the nations.
Between Wales and Argentina.
The great superpowers of our age, and aside from the monuments built to the Falklands wasteland.
Yes, it's become a bit of a rocky thing.
Yeah.
Which is actually a very interesting thing about the Falklands. There were whole areas which were mined. And they were
What were they digging for?
No, they put in mines there. Yeah. This has turned out to be a fantastic nature reserve because it's completely sealed off for people, and penguins don't set off the mines.
Yes.
Because they're too light. So they're basically... The
birds can't trick them.
No, exactly. Occasionally one of the mines goes off spontaneously and there might be some scrambled penguin eggs. But most of the times it's fine. So... Blake...
Yes, Blake...
lands his plane for the last time, gets his gold watch in a little goodbye ceremony with Louise, Helen and Monique are all present in the... goodbye farewell ceremony.
Yep. Leslie, unfortunately, is absent. It's kind of a low-key affair.
Well, Leslie's gone is retired in disgust as well.
Exactly.
Yes.
He gets to keep his best buddy, a sort of dog-sized wasp named Buzz, and off he goes into his Volkswagen Beetle, sticking with the insect theme. I thought that was...
I guess that was kind of cool.
He's really committed to it.
Right, which is weird. Like in a German car, and such an archetypical British hero, you'd think he'd be driving a Jaguar or a...
Yeah.
Do I know any other British car brands?
Oh, I bet you
Vauxhall,
do. Aston.
And he goes driving through the British countryside, heading back to his good old hometown of...
Throbshire,
yes. Which is a bit weird.
It's a bit weird, but it's also completely plausible.
No, totally. And when he gets there, he almost gets a moment where he goes, oh no, he gets a bit of a flashback because like he thinks he's in a volcanic lair, but no, it's not. It's just a big hole in the ground where Throbshire used to be.
Yep.
And the town's gone. It's been suffocated.
Yep, off into space.
Off into space.
Nobody knows where it went, because that's the whole point. When you leave Earth behind, you don't leave a forwarding address.
No, you just go there. And he goes, okay, that's weird. And he drives up to the nearest neighbouring town, the town of Upton Snodsbury, where he asks what happened. He's not entirely familiar with the concept of suffocation. So he just basically wanders over to Upton Snodsbury, where he has a little chat with Mayor Eunice Honeybun. and asks him what happened. And she gets a very cold reception at first. He's going, I don't want to talk about it. And
yes, because they were in a rivalry with
Right.
Throbshire, and they just suffocated first, and they're envious that they didn't.
at least we didn't leave, because apparently there was a problem where Throbshire had a lot of out-of-spec telephone poles, which Upton Snodsbury completely
Disapproved
abhorred.
of, yes.
So they took it up with the County Puckelschurch Homeowners Association
Yes.
and started pestering Throbshire to have this corrected. And then Throbshire had to go through great expenses to get the telephone poles made up to spec, right kind of wood, right kind of number of sidearms, correct number of wires on each pole. It's like an incredible expense. But yeah, Upton Snodsbury had the Homeowners Association's statutes on their side.
It's weird how homeowners association can override like council parishes and
in County Puckelchurch, they're very big about this sort of thing to make sure
Yeah,
that
I guess
everybody
so.
is everybody follows the right subdivision of the Chromesteading, and you can't have like you can't. No, it all has to be uniform and it all has to get the good look. After a little chatting with Mayor Eunice,
with your honourable honey buns.
Ooh,
Actually.
is that the right term for to address a mayor?
No,
Honourable. That sounds like a magistrate or something.
like Her Magistrate.
Her Majesty.
Your Honourable Her Magistrate.
But yeah, after Throbshire finally got the telephone poles into spec, they painted the town red to celebrate, which was like
total violation.
Which also was like a protest
of the local
again by
spectral
Snodsbury.
ordinances.
Upton Snodsbury, like Lower Snodsbury is not a problem, but Upton Snodsbury is the one where they have the problem with. After this, they Throbshire decided like, screw you, we're leaving. So they basically got their boosters right and they suffocated the entire town, leaving a gigantic middle finger-shaped hole in the countryside.
I did appreciate the irony there. Like I wasn't a fan of Throbshire in this story. I mean, not that Upton Snodsbury is any better. I'd probably be more at home in like Lower Snodsbury upon Tweed, which seems sort of my speed. They must have a nice library and maybe maybe a good pub.
Every little town like that has a little county library. If it's an old disused phone booth filled with books.
I encountered one in the wild once. I was so delighted.
So yes, he finds that his hometown is gone. He was planning to go home, do a little bit of chromesteading himself.
Yeah, get into the whole sort of cottage punk lifestyle.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure he is into cottaging. I mean, this is Blake Whitecock we are talking about after all.
Yeah, although I imagine he's not as into cottaging as Louise and Helen and Monique. Like that's
they're on an entirely different level.
That's a cot fest. Day in and day out. Yes.
So yes, he finds himself homeless, as in no home to return to.
Yeah, and it follows a sort of pattern of I guess tragedy in his life. Like we've always known him as an overconfident oaf, and we're bewildered how successful he was made through circumstances often beyond his control. But now that he realizes that his best years are behind him, and he's put his moribund career away, and he was looking to come home, and his home is no longer there. Like I actually kind of felt bad for old Blake.
Yes, I mean, like it's always been the kind of thing that he's been nostalgic about. It's the hometown where he had his youthful adventures.
Yeah,
which primed him for his life of
running about with dogs and sticks.
Yes, it's gone, and he's going like, and he decides like he wants to go and find his home.
So he pulls in a few last favors with members of the Atlantic Alliance who still know him from back in the day.
He goes back to his headquarters. They still know him, so like I guess they know he's retired, but they're like, it's good old Blake.
Yeah.
And he goes to find the new quartermaster, a man by the name of Pickle Scott, and
yes.
ask him like, okay, I need a plane. He goes like, no, I can't do that. And it's like, sorry, sir, you're not on the roster anymore. I can't give you any planes. You're not signed out for that. I can't sign out a plane for you.
Yeah, I love how he was written out phonetically, but it's just some bullshit.
It's
just
someone making
some bullshit
American
imitation
teenager making up Scottish accents.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it never used to be like, it might not be a problem with Quartermaster Leslie, but I kind of there for you, pal.
He did a very good Scottish accent, I thought. Good job, Richard Wilson.
Especially in writing.
Yeah.
Blake has to unfortunately slink out again with the tail between his legs, and And maybe even with Buzz's tail between his legs, although I'm not quite sure.
That's the wrong end of a wasp to have between your legs.
I know, that's why.
No, that definitely, I think he probably knows that well enough. But Buzz does provide him with the necessary clues. Being a little wasp himself, he detects the scent of one of the last remaining insect craft that has survived the mothballing.
Yes.
Yeah. And following Buzz's glowing behind, there's a bit of genetic engineering there. You always want to pop in just a little bit of bioluminescence when you're genetically engineering.
Glowflies. I mean, it's always a good marker. That's the thing.
Yeah. And he finds a dusty old fighter craft, half insect, but the advantage of that is that it doesn't need a lot of fuel.
I do recall them having the problem of once you activate them, they kind of have to keep going. But that must have been fixed because they're using the spacecraft now. So
probably just a tank of liquid oxygen is all it takes. Now you can get that from any scuba shop. So he takes this mothballed craft, and it's not exactly space worthy. He's got to train it a little bit.
Yeah, get a little bit.
It's been hibernating for a while.
Get a few booster rockets on it to get him up to orbital speeds. But fortunately, since suffocation is kind of popular, it's not very hard to get a big booster to get your insect back up into space. So it's there's a lot of cheap knockoffs on Alibaba. There is the montage, of course, which is
the mandatory montage, yes,
which has Blake Whitecock prepping his craft and getting it ready to blast off to find the town of Throbshire.
Inexplicably, also doing a lot of shadow boxing and jogging, none of which is necessary getting out of space.
He has to stay in shape.
Takes a couple of laps around the solar system, and then it's off to find Throbshire.
Yeah.
Following the trail of some of the more recent launches, he has to sort of triangulate where they've wound up through the gravitational eddies and wormholes that surround this region of space.
His hopes get high when he spots a floating town.
And
he zooms on in. He lands his craft down on Cockbrush Avenue, and as soon as he steps out of the
Cobrush.
Isn't
that how you pronounce it?
I mean, there's an artist known by the name of Bruce Coburn, so I guess it's Cobrush Avenue. Turns out that he's not in Throbshire, but he's in Bishop's Itchington.
Yes. Also, overrun with insects.
It is.
So
his craft doesn't look at all out of place there.
No.
But yes, that's where he
positively lousy with them.
Ooh, good one. But yes, he ends up in the town of Bishop's Itchington, has a little wander around and asks, where did you suffocate from? And
obviously he gets a bit of a cold shoulder, the whole reason they launched themselves up into space was to get away from people exploring their quaint little corner of Britain.
Right. I mean, he arrived on an insect ship, so they kind of assume he's a local. But I guess that's the only reason he gets away with it.
That's right. They're all nostalgic for the sort of pre-chrome steering era of British air supremacy.
Blitz mentality and stiff upper lip and all that. And he basically tries to find, have you seen any other floating towns around? And well, yes, occasionally we do float around, and but they tend to fire their booster rockets and get away from that.
They tend not even to wave at each other when they pass. It's like the opposite of bus drivers.
They kind of know they left for petty, small, angry at other towns reasons, and the fact that another town is also...
It's not like our totally righteous reasons for leaving.
Yeah.
They were incredibly reasonable and well thought out and not at all petty.
And all those other people are just, it's just one of those towns again. It's they're probably going to be unreasonable anyway, so we're not going to even bother trying to... get in touch with them, and
they haven't even hailed us. They're barely even waving.
Fire some salute shots, but that could be misinterpreted as
raising the flag slightly higher than the others to embarrass them.
Oh,
it's super passive aggressive.
It depends on how big your pole is, I suppose. But
if I had a penny,
I'd have $4.95.
Jesus, just doing the math on that.
So after moving around Bishop's Itchington for a little bit, and he basically launches his craft back up from Cobrush Avenue, and flies himself back into space looking for the next suffocated town.
And as he hops from town to town, we cut meanwhile to his target, Throbshire, which after a brief brush, a brief co-brush with Bishop's Ishington, during which, unfortunately, probably some of the giant insects made it over just a little bit. But an infestation that they soon got rid of, with some help from a travelling seller of remedies. Someone we recognise as Quartermaster Leslie, who took their retirement out in the depths of space, and well, they've become rather sinister because as Quartermaster Leslie sets up and dispenses not just some extermination technologies necessary to get rid of this infestation, but also some other, like various salves and ailments, and people are used to chromesteading and the discretion of technology. They're kind of marveling at this old-fashioned, like really futuristic organic technology that they
which they kind of like.
Involving like the very popular brain beetle.
Oh.
Yeah,
that kind of freaked me out.
More and more people are seen wearing, especially some people on the parish council. And no, there's no law against it. We can all wear our brain beetles. And in the meantime, the people who are wearing these brain beetles start voting in the elections in rather an unsavory fashion that seems to elevate Quartermaster Leslie until they are mayor and can rename the town of Throbshire to Malos Aires.
Bad air?
Yes, yeah. Like there's still a lot of like Leslie is still stuck in the Welsh Argentinian Cold War.
Yes.
And if they make peace on Earth, then I will make war out here
in space, even if I have to get Malos Aires myself. Yes.
Yeah.
It turns out that like a lot of the brain beetle seems to convey a lot of that homeowner association mentality on people
yes.
that they actually tried to escape County Pucklechurch from.
No, I noticed that.
But now that's how like what Throbshire are now known as Malos Aires is starting to get known for. There's a lot of pettiness going on.
It's the hormones. No, that's not
hormones. It's like, how do you make a hormone? It's like you wipe your dick on our curtains.
Ooh. Mayor Leslie of Malos Aires now has most of the town in their thrall, instructing them to start digging out a volcanic lair on the underside.
I mean, it's already got like the mountain
it's the
shape.
Sort of, yes, exactly. All you need is like spewing and tunneling out, and artificial gravity anyway.
That's always interesting how that works. Like, does it work towards the center, or does it work like all the way down? It's kind of weird how that artificial gravity is.
It seems to work fine. It's always the last system to go down on any science fiction spacecraft.
Yeah, so does a little bit more suffocation town hopping. He passes by 6 Mile Bottom and Beggar's Bush until he actually finds
charming little towns.
It takes him a while because he doesn't realize that Throbshire is now renamed as Malos Aires.
Yeah.
So landing in his new town, he is immediately greeted by Constable Grumbletash, who is by whom he's informed that he is not allowed to park his Waspcraft there.
No parking in village. Can you read? It says no parking.
Like go to the parking lot outside.
Outside the village.
Yes. Okay, so he moves the ship because he's now fighting it.
And also, he's kind of missed it. He's kind of missed being chewed out by the local constable.
Right, and he finds out that Quartermaster Leslie is firmly in control of the town. And he realizes that I might have to do something about this. So he seeks out the former mayor, St. John Quetchworth, who was known for having who was known for having very long talks during the city council meetings.
Yes, with Father Vicar Pastor.
Yes,
his
favorite man to hate.
Yeah, they had endless debates.
One of those love-hate relationships. They're always like ragging on each other.
But they did buy adjoining cottages. And
it's
they're
a
always
ritual
over
dance,
tea.
and they're always in the pub at the same time. And it's like
they're on the shove apney team.
I heard about that game. It's like when you can kind of like tap coins over a wooden board, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like 2D Tiddlywinks.
Oh. Yes.
Just to use another metaphor that is slightly inaccessible.
I'm aware of Tiddlywinks.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay. It's like...
you kind of have to like tap... You put half a penny on the edge of the board and you kind of tap your hand against and you have to shoot it. So it's kind of like tabletop shuffleboard, I suppose.
Shuffleboard, but then without the lanes.
Right.
It's sort of, I guess more it's like tabletop curling.
Oh, yes. A Schule.
Yeah, no, okay. So now we've described like 5 or 6 negligible sports in reference to each other. So I think we're sort of there.
I think our readers at home will get the general gist of the kind of game we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's those pub games. You know, you've got your classics like darts and billiards, which is not the same as pool. And like
I'd love to try one of those billiards game where you have the pockets actually in the middle of the table, where you have to pop the balls into.
I mean, that's what billiards is. It's still.
I'd love to try that sometime.
You've got a bunch of other games like Connect 4 and Connect 5, although I imagine that St. John Kvetchworth and Father Vicar Pastor are playing more like Connect 69 because they're pretty advanced.
They're that kind of people, yes. But he comes back to his little old town of now called Malos Aires, and he discovers that it's a bit of a kind of
they're all a bit shit, aren't they?
They all are. Like, nobody likes each other anymore. They found that when they had the rivalry against Upton Snodsbury, they could basically unite against them.
Yes, it was a uniting factor that. And since then, they've turned on each other. Like, the only ones who seem to be getting on with each other are the ones with the brain beetles on their heads, and everybody knows they're fucking zombies.
Yes, and the whole suffocation doesn't seem to have brought the freedom that they want, because all their, like, little petty hate basically turned inwards and against each other.
Yes. Turns out that your pettiness is never caused by other people. It's just in you, and you need the other people to be who you want to be. Yes.
So I guess that's a bit of a bit of an eye-opener for Mr. Whitecock.
It's a bit of a lesson, because he does see that this town, like, it needs his help, because his once ally, Quartermaster, now Mayor Leslie, is in the process of taking over this town and trying to weaponize it to rekindle the Welsh-Argentinian War, which he needs to put a stop to. So Buzz fetches for him his trusty remote control wand, which is the technology that allows him to interface with the various insects, including the brain beetle.
Of course, because Leslie has been building this on the existing technology, and he never expected Blake to show up here, and especially not with a bug control device like that he still had lying around in his suitcase.
Detonating the underside of the volcanic lair in order to flush out any remaining weapons. The town is inspected by a ship from the Atlantic Alliance. Wow, this is a very consistent book.
Yeah.
Under the command of Generalissimo Jones, once Teniente Colonel, now promoted.
Who shows back up as, yes.
Yeah, he realizes that home is not home anymore, and perhaps it never was, that he has changed and they haven't. And that's just never a good fit.
No, I mean, Generalissimo Jones has been cleared of all the war crimes that he'd been accused of.
Like that all sort of got taken care of.
And basically now patrolling the space and trying to make sure that all the suffocated towns are generally behaving themselves. And
he's in the market for a first mate.
Yes, I mean, they've always
spare room in his bunk.
They have always had a bit of a relationship, him and Mr. Whitecock, with his back in his youthful days.
I believe he was the au pair for a while. What did we say? I don't remember.
Is that a new word for catamites?
I mean, I don't know that it isn't, but
he goes back into the service, basically now serving under Generalissimo Jones's XO.
It finds that the uniforms, I mean, the crop tops are even shorter and show even more midriff, which he's quite pleased with, that he did all those crunches before going on board.
And basically, home is not always you can't go back home again, is I guess the story of the book.
Home is where the heart is,
because home is not anymore what it was. And it's the whole idealized thing with the Cromsteading, which is like you're always longing back for something that never really existed, only in your mind, and exactly. Trying to go back there, that can't never work.
And he learns to move forward, which I really appreciated. And off he goes into the thousand sunsets of the galaxy to police the space lanes. And if there are people out there who want to retreat the way that the suffocated towns do, he's going to make sure that they're safe.
Yeah, basically Finn, I suppose.
Yeah, I think this brought our trilogy of Blake Whitecock novels to a close. But then there's always the question mark: is there going to be another? Because
right, and there's always all the young fiction books of Blake Whitecock doing whatever he wants to do in the countryside.
That's right. So it's
I think
all
there's a few
downhill
ones
from
about
here.
More cottaging going on in several of them.
Okay. So we'll just call this the main arc, but we'll keep the door open to more Blake Whitecock. In the meantime, this was a pretty good book.
I liked it.
Even for the Blake Whitecock novels are obviously some of my favorites, but I was really touched by how human and down to earth it was.
I loved the wonderful description of the little petty little rivalries, the complaining about leaving the trash out on Tuesday, and the trash collectors came back 10 minutes ago. Why are your bins still out on the roads? It's because I work, Karen.
Yes. And what a wonderful thing it is to live in a world where that is your biggest problem. Like, that's certainly something worth protecting.
I guess so. I mean, like...
I really liked the names. I thought the St. John Quetchworth and Constable... Where was the Constable?
Constable Grumbletash.
Constable Grumbletash. Yeah, Constable Grumbletash.
Yes.
And 6 Mile Bottom. These names were so good.
They were, yes. It's like... It was a great story. I enjoyed the whole Leslie routine, how he came back, and especially his
the Dark Horse.
Yeah, especially how he couldn't let go of the war and had to perpetuate it, and especially renaming the town into Malas Ares. That had me in stitches when I saw that one.
Yeah. So how are we going to rate this book?
Let's see.
Halfpenny. Okay, shove halfpenny. How many halfpennies do you play?
There's 14
with?
halfpennies in a 12's worth.
Okay, so that's 7 pennies. Okay, we can do. Can we do it out of 7?
7? Yeah, sure. I'll give it a 5 out of 7. I liked it.
So that's 10 out of 14 halfpennies, 5 out of 7. Yeah, sounds.
And 3 out of 8 quarters.
3 out of 8 quarters. And speaking of reviews, God. If you look down at your podcasting device, you should be able to fondle a little star on your screen. I should not have said it like that, but hey, here we are. You can find us on the interwebs. We're Cover My Asscast on Twitter and covermyasscast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you have an idea for a book that you think we should review but not read, based purely on the cover. But in the meantime, what do we have in store for our readers next week?
Next week's book is by Roger Welsh. Golden Years My Ass. Adventures in Geriatric Indignity.
And that about covers it. Thank you for joining us at Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember...
We only judge a book by its cover. I mean, that sort of sounds like Throbshire and Upton Snodsbury.
I don't think Throbshire is really a problem for geriatric indignity, but it's like...
Certainly,
Bishopton, that occurs a lot in the care homes, I hear.
Oh, wow.